All right, guys, 5 minutes goes by so fast, so we're gonna have to run through this really quick. I'm sorry I got cut off in the last video. I was just trying to say checks and balances, but we gotta move on. So we're talking about the executive branch and the president. We know that their job is to enforce the laws. Most of this, especially on this PowerPoint specifically, is a little more straightforward. And so I'm kind of just gonna like highlight the things you really need to pay attention to. So we've talked about this before, where with the founders setting up the government in Philadelphia, their intent was to not have a super powerful executive. We didn't want anybody to be tyrannical. We were scarred from the king, things like that. And so, but they initially didn't have term limits. And so that became an issue. And George Washington even pointed out the fact that we needed term limits. And this idea that he kind of set up of a two-term precedent, we've learned that word, is now enforced by the 22nd Amendment to our Constitution. And so think about, this is just more like how the public and what we want in a president. Remember, you want somebody strong, you want somebody that also appeals to the common man. Think back to those campaign ads and thinking about the public opinion unit on how we pick or view a president. So what I really want to highlight here is we have these constitutional or formal requirements to be president, okay? These are written in the Constitution. There's not very many, okay? But then we have informal. There's a whole lot more informal. Remember, those are just society enforced. Those are things that are trends. Those are things that we've seen over the years. And so don't get too bogged down in these because look, political experience. Donald Trump had no political experience and he is our president as of now. And so really pay attention to this formal versus informal paradox because we're going to see it again. We just talked about the 22nd Amendment. Look, this is how much the president makes. Not a whole lot for what you got to do. The vice president stuff is fairly just straightforward, so I'll let you guys handle that. And then we get to the 25th Amendment. That's talking about the presidential line of succession. That's basically just outlining who takes the presidency if this happens to the president and so on and so forth. So we're going to skip. That's the 25th Amendment. Make sure you pay attention to that. And so it goes Speaker of the House, President pro tempore, Secretary of State, and then the 14 other cabinet positions in order of creation. And so again, when we're talking about presidential power, I want you guys to think about this formal versus informal paradox. So formal powers, things like vetoing, commander-in-chief, making treaties, things like that, those are all formal. Those are all written and given to him, okay? And then we think about informal powers. What did we talk about in our reading guide? We talked about executive orders. And informal powers they grow. We have talked about this multiple times in the unit now about how the federal government is expanding, especially the executive and the legislative, and how their influence over things like legislation and just really that one's a really big one, has increased over the years. And so we're going to look at these formal powers, like I said, vetoing, signing treaties, commander-in-chief, the State of the Union address, grants and pardons, and then informal would be like executive orders, executive agreements. That's just like a treaty, but he doesn't have to have Senate approval. Signing statements, things like that. Really, this is a very timely part of history in the making when all of this COVID-19 stuff going on, and really look at these presidential statements and how the president addresses the public. I gotta go really fast. And so look at his 6 roles, okay? So these are all individual roles. Kind of think of him wearing 6 different hats. You can hear my cat coming. She wants to say hi. And then these last few slides are really about checks and balances. I cannot tell you enough how important checks and balances are in this unit. Really pay attention to those. All right, so thank you.